first and foremost, obviously somebody is missing.
Yeah,
We're
where is he
missing.
at?
We are talking we with you two. It's you two are always up to something, but Rudy in particular is like lives on a plane. So we right before doing this episode, Rudy at 1 in the morning my time, which would be I think 11 your time. He goes, "Hey, I just landed in Tokyo. Sorry, guys." So and I look at the time in Tokyo and I go, "Yeah, he's not going to be able to do this."
Some of
Um,
us have to work.
yeah, he goes to Japan more than I go to the grocery store. I was just telling you that. Like I've never. It's so crazy to me how that man can exist going like that far on a plane so many times.
He's so used to it, I guess, that it would kill me. But jet lag has got to be very difficult on him if he's on a plane so many times in a month. But he loves it. I mean, he really, truly, truly loves it.
Absolutely, it's funny. My wife just recently she goes, "I want to go to Japan so bad. Like I want to go to Disney in Japan. Can we plan that trip?" And I'm like, "Yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll see. Let's look at down. Let's get through the holidays and stuff." And then I look at Rudy and it's like, "Oh my gosh! Like if she knew how many times one person could even make that trip, can never
I,
tell her."
Yeah, I've never been to Japan. That's a country that I would love to go to, but I've traveled most of the world, and Japan has not been one of the countries I visited. So I would like to go there one day.
Yeah, I think it'd be just a fascinating, cool place. I think the culture alone is it's just a whole different world out there.
Yeah, I've been told it's a very special place to visit. Like you said, the culture is so different from anywhere else you go. So I would like to experience that, but maybe one day.
Absolutely. So, all that being said, here's a funny one. So on Thursday night, I shot a text over to Rudy, and it was just a couple short questions. I was looking for his thoughts on something, and he goes, "Give me a call." He goes, "I'm going to give you a call tomorrow, and I'll answer your questions." And I go, "Okay, cool." He calls me and he goes, "Hey, I'm going to give you a call. We're training. I'm going to give you a call tonight. Is that all right? When I'm going to be on the road to Vegas." And I go, "Yeah, that's no problem." And I give him a phone call. What I realized is he's driving alone up to Vegas, so he needs someone to talk to for the ride. So he plans it out, and it turns into he answers the questions in under like under 5 minutes. Then we talk for like an hour and change. And I was like, "Oh, he was
You
just looking
needed
for."
company.
Yeah, exactly. That being said, though, if listen, and I'll tell this to anybody, if somebody gives you that opportunity like him or you or someone that has so much experience and like I'm always grateful to get it, like that's a good opportunity. Someone says, "Hey, you had an hour to just talk," yeah, of course, like anytime.
Yeah, no, he's very knowledgeable.
Yeah, yeah, he's great, knowledgeable with boxing, knowledgeable with life, knowledgeable about where they cross over too, because you start to notice, especially for the lifestyles you two live, like they're so almost interchangeable with one another.
Yeah, I guess we kind of have the same attitude towards the sport and towards our methods and our ways of molding. Uh, we're very strict. We are very truthful. We tell you what it is, how it is, and what it is, and how it's got to be. And a lot of people don't understand that. And I think that's one of the reasons why he's had so much success. And I'm fortunate that I've had some decent fighters.
Absolutely. Um, all that being said, one of the really cool things. This has been a pretty good month of boxing. We've definitely had several good fights between November and then going into December. I think the one that I think the hardcore fans and hopefully more less hardcore fans are excited about is on December 27th. Naoya Inoue and Junto Nakatani are both going to fight on the same card. I thought personally, I think it's weird that it's not in Japan because why not go where people are going to probably pay the most? It's going to be in Riyadh instead. But what I loved, and I was just telling you this, is a concept they're doing that we've definitely seen before, where you take two guys that you're probably angling to fight each other, and you put them on the same card. And I think personally that's exactly how you should do it. You should build them up collectively. The Inoue fans now have an opportunity to see who his next opponent is going to be. Um, I don't think it's any surprise that these two are on a collision course too, because like Ring Magazine put a cover of them together, and the fights that no fight's been made. So all that being said, what are your thoughts on sort of building the storyline when promoters are able to build up to a fight versus making fights more spontaneously?
I think that it applies to all sports. I mean, look at that in football. You have, the playoffs. You have in baseball in the playoffs, in basketball the playoffs. 64 in the college 64. It's a playoff, so you culminate at the top. They have built themselves up to the semifinals. Now this will be the semifinals, and the winners will fight each other. I think that's a great concept. We're going to get to see both guys hopefully at their best, and then we can be prognosticators and say, okay, well, I think this guy's going to do this because of this, and but we at least get to see them together. It's not 1 month apart or a couple months apart where you don't see within an hour, hour and a half of each other what they can and can't do. I think that's a great concept.
Absolutely. Now, is that something you feel is sort of coming back to boxing? The idea of kind of making it like brackets and playoffs, or have I missed it? Because I feel like in the last decade, you didn't really see that. Fights sort of got made based on what they were able to make. And now I feel like maybe in the last few years, especially like the heavyweight division, you sort of saw them. Maybe it's just because they got guys to fight each other, but then it was like the winners of those fights then go on to fight. And you sort of, I don't want to call it a loser's bracket, but then you'd have a bracket of, okay, these two have been beaten, they'll fight and see where they go from there. Is that something that seems like it's coming back, or was I missing it in the
No,
last?
no, it is coming back, and it's coming back at this time. I think anyway, at this time in our timeline, because we have no star right now. Canelo has gotten beaten. Crawford's not the draw that maybe Canelo was, or Floyd was, or Chavez was. So right now we have a void of a superstar. Let's say that people are going to pay, whether they love him or hate him, that are going to pay the money and have the 70,000 people in an arena to witness a fight. So we haven't got that star right now, and I think they have to build to that point. Yeah, they're going to have to start eliminating each other to build to that point where they have that superstar that they can bank on and draw and have the networks or whomever is televising it put on a big card with a big star in it.
That's a great point too. Do you feel like Crawford maybe? I mean, other people have said this too. And up until this fight, even I think the Errol Spence fight did a lot for him. I think this fight, obviously, a lot more people know about him now than they did before fighting Canelo. But do you feel like his time in the? I want to say this very thoughtfully and respectfully, but I'll say it seems like his time at welterweight was wasted because there was a lot of good talent around and no fights were being made. There was eventually he did get Porter and then he got Spence, but I feel like he was at welterweight for a long time. If they would have been making those fights, I think Crawford would have built a bigger name at a more recognizable weight class. Would you agree with that, or do you think that's
You're absolutely right. He didn't give us or didn't give the fans time to fall in love with him, to really back him. Yes, he had a great fight against Canelo, but what did he have in between? Nothing really. That was the 54-pound title was something that really he didn't look that great winning. So if you'd have built up 47 and then a couple at 54, it didn't have to be the one that he fought. It could have been anybody, just to build up so that the fans could actually see him instead of him being put away. How long was it before he fought Canelo? And how long was it before he fought the 54-pound title? So we didn't get a chance to get rally behind him, I guess. And now that he's 38 years old, what can he do now? He's taken a step back by fighting anybody. Really, he fought the biggest fight of the decade, let's just say, or of recent times. So yeah, he didn't give us enough time to, or didn't give the fans to create a bigger fan base for himself.
I agree. I totally agree. I think, and Rudy says this all the time, and the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, he's right. Because like he pointed out how great it is that Inoue is about to. He defends his title frequently. He fights frequently. I just heard a stat that he's the first person since Larry Holmes to defend a Ring magazine title 4 times in a year after this next fight. Um, that infrequency, though, do you think that if you took a guy like Crawford or any really talented fighter and just had them continuously fight, even if the level of opposition isn't a Canelo or Errol Spence, but if they're fighting strong opposition, but maybe 3 times a year, do you think that's much more valuable than waiting a year to a year and a half to fight just big fights?
Absolutely, for several reasons. The first reason is that out of sight, out of mind. I think that you don't see him but once a year or once a year and a half, then you kind of forget about who he is. Yes, he's talented, but you have other interests after a year and a half. You maybe not watching boxing as much as you used to watch. And two, there's skills erode. That you can't stay sharp fighting every once a year or once a year and a half. Mike Tyson was at his best when he was fighting 6 to 8 weeks apart. Golovkin was fighting 3 times a year. All the great ones were fighting up until maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, consistently at least a couple times a year, maybe 3 times a year. So yeah, I think it's very, very important for them to keep themselves in the public's eye, out of sight, out of mind. It's unfortunate now that it's about how much money I'm going to make or what's the advantage for me fighting instead of just fighting the best, who's ever next in line, as Larry Holmes did. Larry Holmes would fight the next one, the next one, the next one, and I think that's important for them to stay sharp, one, and for them to stay in the public's eye.
Agree. I mean, and you think about it too. Even if a fight, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd rather a guy the best fighting the best. I think that's the best case scenario. There's only so many bests to go around, though. Say you're a guy who takes on all the best competition, and all of a sudden you've sort of, cleaned out a division, and there isn't much at the next division, but there's maybe a couple really good prospects. You can let those prospects grow and at least stay busy for a year. You can get 3 fights, which is more than nothing, right? Like something will beat nothing in that scenario. I think of Joe Louis. When he won the championship, he was like a rocket on his back, like just absolutely huge. And he carried that title for such a long time. But in between, when there weren't guys that really, he can't go up in weight, right? So in between, he would do the bum of the month tour. And they'd
Yeah,
say, yeah,
they criticized him for that. It's unfortunate that people, fans are so fickle. You want to see him fight, but you want to see him fight the best, the best, the best. They can't fight the best every time. They have to just continue to stay busy and have somebody built up, like they're doing right now with Junto and Inoue. I go back to Inoue, which we're talking about him fighting so often. The only thing that I see wrong or not as beneficial for him staying busy is that he's doing it in not in a market where he can be seen by a lot of people. This fight being in Riyadh, I think it's important because for some reason that's become the capital of the boxing capital of the world right now. The bigger fights are being done there. But I think that if he would have fought those 4 or 5 fights that he's fought, defending his title in Vegas or New York or in Riyadh, as he's doing this one, I think it'd have been more important for his career and for his fan base being hidden away. And I gotta say, Japan's not a big market. So the time difference is so different from the U.S., where the boxing market is important is not as good for him, I should say, than if you would have fought him here.
yeah, I think that's a good point. We don't think about that. Obviously, you see fighters in England who they could make their whole career in England and never come to the States because, like, the fans there are just really passionate. I mean, that's the best way to put it. They'll sell out stadiums, in a heartbeat for a fighter that they get behind. But still, like, the United States is still a huge market for boxing, as is, of course, just like North America, because you have Mexico as well, huge market, and then I think parts of Canada too. So if you're not crossing, if you're not crossing that ocean to make those fights, I do feel like you're missing some opportunities there. Just like if you're an American fighter and you don't cross over at
Right.
some point.
Well, you mentioned the English fighters. Look, when Ricky Hatton fought here, Calzaghe fought some of the stars there. The fans came. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember being in a Ricky Hatton fight where they do their chants in the audience, and it was half the audience was doing the chant. I mean, so they travel. So if they're able to come here and fight, I'm sure there's the Japanese folks who travel here, and there's a lot of fans here. I'm sure that he has. I'm sure that he would have a lot of support here anyway. But at least the American market would get to see him on prime time when it really makes a difference for him to build his base.
Absolutely. And here's something. I mean, some people will argue this up and down, but like I think for some reason, particularly in America, size matters, right? Like it seems like until you hit 135, it's very hard to sort of get more public attention. Do you think is there something to that? Why do you think that is if there's something to that?
There is something to that. I think that in America, we like from 35 to say 60. That's the prime weights here in America. Our greatest fighters have been at those weights here in America. But could it be that they're not showcasing them here? Could it be if Inoue was fighting here all the time, maybe the 18 pounders or the 22 pounders that would then be very popular? They seem uh, to go to where they're smaller fighters. So Japan has a smaller fighters. They don't have really big fighters. But they had a gold medalist at 140, at 147, 154. Oh no, I'm sorry, 160. Murata. So they do have big kids over there, and if they would just bring the 18, 22 pounders here to America to fight the Americans or fight English guys here, they would build a base. I think that for some reason we are fanatical about our boxing in America, and we're going to pay to see a good fight. And if they can build them here, I'm sure they'll get a good fan base, a good base to make more fights here.
We were we were taught this is like the biggest thing in boxing, so we almost can't not. We were talking about Crawford earlier. Um, him building his fan base, taking maybe too long between fights. I agree. I think anyone who's taking more than a year between fights, I don't blame the fighter. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it, but it's a terrible recipe. I think it's unfortunate he's gotten to this age, and you think, what could like if he would have been really busy at if he would have been really busy at 135, 140, 147 when he was like in his 20s, early 30s, his prime. Like imagine what we could have had an opportunity to see. What I will say to his credit is I don't feel like he's fallen for a 30 now 38-year old. I don't think he's lost so much just based on the eye test. I'll start with that first. Do you feel like at 38 he's still got something to give?
No, absolutely. But Father Time's going to take its toll. We don't know if it could be the next fight. I mean, Cotto, it took one fight. Uh, what was that young man that beat him from New York? But Ali, what was his name?
Saddam Ali.
Saddam Ali, yeah. So, but the fight prior to that, he looked great, Cotto. So it could be overnight. You just never know when the desire's not there, the training habits change. Is the money going to change him? Is the fact that he's at the top of he's the face of boxing right now. I think he fought a great fight, but he's also 38 years old. Have we wasted 4 or 5 years of watching a prime Crawford go through the top contenders or the top stars in his division or the next division? We don't know, but yeah, at 38 years old, I wish he had fought a little more consistently against the notable guys to have built that legacy. I guess that maybe he didn't care about that though.
Yeah. Oh, well, actually, I want to take a step back. What I will say is he was undisputed at 140 at the time. He was like hands down the best at 140. There weren't huge names at 140. At 135, he certainly had good fights, but 147 is where I think that was where things went awry. He jumped up. He had a really good win over Horn, and it that was an exciting time. So you're like, all right, let's go. And then it was I think part of that might have been COVID happened during that time in between, but it was real. I think that's where things stalled out. So I do want to retract that. I don't think he wasted away at 140. I think he jumped up and cleared out, but yeah, 147 was a bummer for him. I would say for a lot of that time.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not a proponent that they have to move up. I just think that if the challenges are no longer there for you and you feel like you need to move up, Marvin Hagler never moved up. If the challenges are there, then take them. If they're not there, then do what you have to do for what's best for your career. But the one thing is, you can't sit out for a year and a half.
Agreed. 1,000%. I totally agree. So the next thing, obviously, this is what I was sort of getting to, is the big story in boxing, and people seem to be really split about it. To me, it's funny. It's almost like a no story because it's happened before. I didn't think it was that big a deal, but this one got blown up. So Terrence Crawford goes up to 168, fights, obviously, everybody knows Canelo, and his biggest payday by far, his biggest fight by far, clearly like a marquee fight. It was the biggest event of the year. But then after getting paid, he stiffs the WBC. So they're owed. Now I might get some of the facts wrong here. So he's owed roughly, I think it's 300,000. He says I'm not going to pay them. I think there's a lot of different things that go into this. So I'll give my 2 cents real quick. I think honestly he got paid and he thought, okay, now that I'm the name, I don't really need these belts anymore. 300,000. I mean, to me, that would be an outrageous amount of money. That's like a college fund for three kids to go to like any school, right? So like, it's a lot of money, and he sees it and he goes, "No, I'm not going to pay it." But then I think a story comes into it of why he won't pay it, and he says, "Well, I'm not going to pay it because the ring belt is free, and isn't that the belt that declares who a real champion is?" So new politics come into it, but I don't believe that's why he didn't pay it. I think he didn't pay it because he just decided there was no value in paying it. That's my 2 cents on it, and I think it became something bigger. All that being said, I mean, you've probably read everything about it as well. What are your thoughts on Terrence Crawford not paying the WBC their sanctioning fee?
Terrence Crawford is a great fighter, first of all. But Terrence Crawford could have been a great fighter and not being ranked by anybody who would have known him. Who would have known him? You wouldn't have known him. He's from, what is he, Omaha, Nebraska? Is that where he's from? Okay. So he could have been fighting for the Omaha belt. Who cares? These organizations that rank you, and they rank you worldwide, they're a business. Um, and they rank you worldwide so that the world knows you. The opportunity that he got to be undisputed at 140 was because why? Because he was ranked. And he paraded the belts and he paraded himself as undisputed champion uh, uh, with the help of who? The organizations. He didn't do it with the ring belt. He didn't do it with the Omaha belt. He did it with the organizations that rank you worldwide. Now, are they necessary? They're necessary because, in my opinion, just like when you were a child and you had you were in bike races or in baseball or in soccer, you got a little trophy that you fought for. I mean, that you played for. You didn't get paid. You got that little trophy. Those belts are the trophies for accomplishments, and that they are a business that have to. Let's just say the WBC has. They're charging sanction fees because they have fighters, let's just say in Africa that are will never be known unless they get ranked, unless they get recognized by somebody. They can't get recognized by, like I said, Omaha or if they're in Accra, Ghana, who's going to know them in America? Unless they get ranked and unless they start moving up the rankings, and then the organizations then sanction about between them and somebody in America. Now they get known. So I think that the fact that he chose to allow the organizations to rank him and to give him validity um, as a fighter, his record means nothing unless somebody knows him, worldwide, that is. So if he would have said at the beginning when he first started his career, I'm never going to pay any sanction fees, where do you think he'd be right now? He wouldn't be fighting anybody because he wouldn't be ranked. He wouldn't be allowed to fight anybody. So those sanction fees are for a reason from a business. Before the fight, he agreed to pay the sanction fees. He agreed only because he wanted to be undisputed. Now his honor, he's not being honorable by honoring his commitment. Right? He should have said at the beginning, if he wasn't going to pay it at the beginning before the fight, he should have said, I don't want to pay it. Then okay, you're not going to be undisputed. Would that have been okay with him? Of course not. So he used his the organization to be called undisputed. He doesn't care now because he's 38 years old. But what happens if he's 31? If a fighter does that when he's 31, he doesn't get to fight for a title again. So you have a choice as a subcontractor, which is what we are, and they're a business, to allow them to grant you that honor, if you want to call it that, of being considered a world champion for that particular organization. If you don't pay the sanction fees, but you'll never fight for that title. So you'll never be undisputed. So I think it's an honor thing here. See, he agreed to it before the fight. So if he agreed to it, be a man, live up to your obligations, or say, no, I don't want to do it.
That's totally fair. That's totally fair. That's the idea. It's the same concept of having someone provide a service all the way up to a certain point and then stiffing them on the bill after the service
Correct.
has been provided.
Correct. And you knew up front what that money, it wasn't a surprise to him. They even, in fact, I believe that for the smaller shows, for the smaller fights, it's a 3% purse, 3% of the purse from each side. And that is to pay for a lot of different things the organization has, but it's none of our business what they do with the money. I understand the WBC has some kind of program in Las Vegas, in Nevada or something, but it's really none of our business. I don't ask you what your finances are. I'm sure the WBC is not asking Crawford what his finances are. This is a company. This is a business. The WBC is a business, is the WBA, WBO, and the IBF. They're a business that they're in the business of ranking fighters for their belt. So it's their business what they do with the money. It's none of our business what they do with the money, just like it's none of their business what we do with our money. So the fact that they agreed to at the beginning to a $300,000 sanction fee on a $50 million fight. I mean, that's nothing. That's peanuts.
Yeah.
I mean, in the scheme of things, I mean, if it's a $500,000 fight and asking you to pay $300,000, obviously that's not fair. But
Highway robbery.
the only reason he got the $50 million fight is because they ranked him along the way to be able to qualify or to be able considered to fight the undisputed champion of the time or the WBC champion of the time, which was Canelo, or else he wouldn't have got that opportunity. If he wasn't ranked, he wouldn't have got that opportunity. If he wasn't ranked in the top 10 in WBC, he would not have been able to fight Canelo for the WBC belt.
Yeah. Well, and really the value of it, once he's fighting Canelo, it's almost as if at that point the belts, you could take them or leave them. It's more so the 15 years of building a career, of being, a local fighter in Omaha where you're selling tickets on a local show, and
Correct.
and suddenly you win a couple of very good fights and you become ranked, and now you're in the
Ranked
conversation.
by who though? But ranked by who?
WBC.
Right. Okay,
Yeah,
so
that's
in
what. Yeah.
order to use the WBC, you have to use it in that manner to continue to be climbing up the ladder. So, but if you refuse, if at that if at that point when he was going to be ranked, he said, "I'm never going to pay sanction fees," do you think he'd be dropped out of the ratings? Of course he would. So then he would never be able to qualify to fight the next belt, the next belt. He fought 3 or 4 belts or 3 or 4 times for WBC belts, where qualified him to be ranked at 168. They considered him. Why? Because he was a super champion in some of the other belt levels or weights. So they allowed him to fight at 168, or shouldn't say they allowed him. They gave him that opportunity to fight for that belt because he had the record of fighting for the other belts, the other WBC weight belts. So that fact that he agreed to it and then is backing out, I think it's not good for our sport.
Fair enough. Now, that being said, the second argument that comes out of all of this, and it's totally separate from that. I think they're two separate things, and it's sort of being used as a platform because it's got so much attention. Is the idea of their, and I've mentioned this before. It seems to me like Ring would like to have their belt be the belt, and that and I think the idea is that if their belt is the belt, then there's one belt. There can still be other belts, but there will be one belt that I think every sanctioning body tries to be that belt too, right? Every sanctioning body would like to be the belt. That is like the one belt you have to have. But they're clearly making the argument that their rankings and their belts are more accurate, their belt is more valuable, and as Terrence Crawford says, it's free, right? Do you think that that has potential to be a good thing? I think we've had this conversation before, but is there potential for it to be a good thing if we get down to just one belt, one champion, or is there a place for us to have multiple belts?
In the past, let's say 40 years ago, the amount of fighters that we have today are so much more. One, in the past, we had 8 weight divisions. Now we have 17 weight divisions, 18 now with that bridge weight. If we have 100 fighters in the lightweight division and there's only one belt, how long is the wait to get to be fighting for a world title? If we have 5 organizations and they all rank their fighters in their own methods because of different regions, if it's 5 organizations and 100 lightweights, now we wait 20 spots to fight for a world title. So as a coach, I don't want to be waiting 100. I mean, in the old days, they fought a lot more often, so they were able to move up the rankings, let's just say, quicker. Now you fight once a year. How can you move up the rankings? And there's 100 fighters. How can you move up to fight for a world title? So there's a pluses and minuses to it. But if you look at the reality of it, as a coach, am I going to be waiting 5 years for my guy to get a title shot? That doesn't make any sense. By then I'll have 60, 70 fights or have 13 fights, 14 fights because I'm only fighting once a year or twice a year.
Absolutely. Yeah. As you were
So,
saying it, I thought about. Oh, sorry.
yeah, as in the past when there was only 8 weight divisions, weren't that many fighters. Now that we have 18 weight divisions and look at the box rec. Look at the box rec. We have thousands of fighters on their box rec in each weight division. So could you imagine having to wait for that long when there's only one belt? Would we be losing coaches? We'd be losing fighters.
It's 100% true. And before you even said it, I started thinking, in the old days, you could get yourself into title contention after a couple of years because you could have 30 fights in 2 years and just grow. You could be fighting whoever in the first year, and by the second year, you're fighting contenders. By the third year, you're fighting, some of the best in the world. I mean, it was to the point where
Yes.
you would see some of the trilogies get up between two guys to 3, 4, or 5 fights because they could just fight so many times, or they did fight so many times. But you're right. If guys are fighting once, if the champion were to, let's say, David Benavidez, a guy who fights once to like maybe twice a year, and you've got 6 good challengers, yeah, the last guy in line would have to wait for 3 or 4 years before he got a shot.
Correct. But another point too, though, is where are you located right now?
Chicago.
Okay, Chicago. Let's just say that uh, you're fighting for the Chicago title. How much money are you going to make fighting for the Chicago title? How much money are you going to make for a world title? So being a world champion for a fighter and for a coach makes a big, big difference in the amount of money we get paid.
Yeah.
Fighting for the Chicago title, fighting for the North American title is not going to be as important as fighting for a world title. So as you start naming titles, or a 10-round fight, let's just say, as you start naming titles, that's where you make the money. That's where there's more interest. When you say, oh, it's a world title fight. Oh, wow. So now there's more interest. It's a Chicago title. Who cares?
Absolutely. And you have to build. You're sort of forced to build a fan base simply by having good fights. You can't get to a world title. I mean, no, I take that back. I've seen guys get to world titles without having a good fight. It had to be choreographed. But for a guy coming from Chicago, yeah, you to get to a world title, you'd really, really have to do it the hard way. You'd have to
Correct.
prove a lot.
Correct. So now if there's only one, how many fighters are we going to lose? How many champions are we going to lose? How many coaches are we going to lose? We have to have a job. It's unfortunate that maybe, I would say 3%, 4 or 5% of the world's coaches can afford not to work. We're fortunate, we're blessed that we have some decent fighters that are making a little bit of money that keep us from having to have a side job or have a job. A lot of these coaches, the majority of the coaches are volunteering their time, hoping to one day land that one guy that makes him a little bit of money. So if these coaches are not getting the fights or not getting title fights because there's only one belt, let's just say one organization, then how many jobs do they have in order to stay in the business, to be able to live and support your families and stuff like that? You can't. It's almost impossible. So the trickle down effect is, in my opinion, is very difficult for us, for the coaches.
And there's more. I think you could say there's more implications too, because if you're a coach and you have a gym, there has to be some income, and you can have classes and stuff, and you'll make some money. But really, I think, like you said, the big thing is you get a big fighter, and maybe you get two, maybe
Yeah,
more,
but
and God
yeah, but
bless.
if you have, let's say in Chicago, if you have 100 gyms, that's only 100 coaches. There's 4 or 5 of the coaches that are working underneath that coach that don't make any money from the gym.
Absolutely. And if there's no gym, there's no coach. What you then
No.
have is no place
Right.
for kids to go
Right.
in Chicago.
Right.
Which I will say, in Chicago, I've seen.
That's everywhere though. That's
Yeah,
everywhere. That's here in California. It's everywhere. I just think that limiting the opportunities um, for a fighter to fight for a belt, let's just say, in I think limits the potential of a coach hanging on and being able to hang on and hoping for the future.
no, that gives a lot of perspective. I think ultimately this is going to sound really cliche and corny, but ultimately it kind of comes back to the kids, right? Like that's really the best return from boxing that we all sort of see is there are a lot of kids who find an outlet. They find, they're not all going to be world champions, but I've met several kids who came from very difficult situations and didn't know how to deal with a lot of frustration and anger and suddenly developed discipline,
Boxing
developed.
saved them. Yeah, boxing saved them. Absolutely. But the other thing is to getting back to the organizations is
Yeah,
that they're not perfect. There is a lot of, like in anything else, let's just say the hard word, corruption. There is a lot of things that maybe are not correct. But let's, for instance, the WBA came under fire for having so many interim champions and so many belts underneath a certain belt. For a coach, and as a fight fan, I can understand the frustration from a fight fan. Okay, I can understand them saying, um, "Why do they have so many belts? Who do we know is the real champion?" From a coach's perspective, I have to say that as many belts as they can have is best for us and for the fighter because we get to fight for a belt, meaning we get to fight for more money. We're not fighting for the Chicago belt or for the Los Angeles belt. We're fighting for the North American belt,
yeah.
even if it's the interim belt. We're fighting, which gives us an opportunity to be in line for the real belt. So um, uh, the fact that there are organizations with, as people say, too many belts. Uh, it looks for. I guess it depends on from which side of the street you're looking at it from. I'm looking at it from the coaches and from the fighter standpoint. It's an opportunity for my kid that I have in the gym. That I have a local kid that's 4-0 here from Big Bear, who hopefully when he gets to be 12, 13, 14 and 0, we can get a shot at something, at some kind of belt. Not the Big Bear belt because nobody cares about the Big
Yeah.
Bear belt. You know, let's just say the North American belt of some sort. At least we're recognized for accomplishing something.
Do you think there's a place where this is something I've thought about before, where there could be maybe it would require a lot of coordination, but essentially like regional levels, like an Illinois title or like a California state title, but you kind of figure out who's the best guy in this state, who's the best guy in that state. From there, you can kind of figure out who's the best in the Midwest, the West, and do it regionally, and then sort of feed them up to the next level where they're fighting against guys who are ranked. Would that be good for boxing? Do you think that even be possible to do something
Oh,
like that?
I don't think that's possible because there's too many interests involved. In other words, a promoter interest, a manager's interest. A manager doesn't want to fight his fighter. If he's got a decent fighter, fight him in California. He wants to fight him in Vegas or in New York. Because his fighter's going to make more money, the manager's going to make more money,
Yeah,
the coach is going to make more money. So on a pro level, that would be very difficult because, like I said, there's so many interests. And a promoter that promotes California fighter, maybe from New Jersey,
true.
or maybe from New York, maybe from Florida, maybe his interest is not necessarily where he fights, is where he can generate the most income. Right.
Also, who does he have signed? Smaller
Right.
promoters constantly will have their own guys signed. Well, who do you think is going to get the main event? Who do you think is going to get the prime pickings? If you're at 160 and his guy's at 160, you're not going to fight his guy if you're better, and you're not going to get good opponents compared to him. You're not, and you certainly won't make as much money, but he'll move his own guy before he moves a guy who's not signed. Which, by the way, of course, like that's how I
It's
understand.
business.
Yeah,
That's business. The same thing with the rankings. Same thing with the organizations. They're going to fight the guys. If you look at the rankings, look at the four organizations. Maybe the first three or four are similar, but from there down, they're different names that are in different organizations. Why? Because WBC is in Mexico, so they're going to rank guys that are close to that area. WBA is in Panama. It used to be in Venezuela, but they're going to rank guys that are in the southern part of South America. The WBO is in Puerto Rico. Look at the rankings. The IBF is in America. Okay, so but all these organizations have fingers in all parts of the world. So they have representatives, which the sanction fees take care of, to to um, to look and find possible guys that they can rank and possible fights that they can do for titles to qualify them for the next title for the American, for bringing them to America or bringing them to a world title. So all these fingers that they have all over the world, that's why they have different names from the say 3 or 4 or 5 down to
Gotcha.
50, whatever.
And that's why you're saying if it's not for this organization, you'll never find out about an up and coming fighter from
Of course not. No.
Africa or
No, from Philippines, from from anywhere,
totally.
from Chile. For there's a lot of great fighters down in Argentina's got a great school. Kazakhstan's got a great school of amateur program, and they have a lot of very very good fighters. So if they don't have those fingers out there that are representatives for that particular organization that are getting paid, I'm sure they're not doing it for free. So this is where sanction fees come from. This is where all that stuff has to that generating income has to pay for all these things that they're doing to try to build up our sport.
Here's one thing I keep hearing, and I think I'll call it out because I know it's going to get called out, right? When we talk about the sanctioning bodies and we say they have business interests, there will be a lot of people who will say, and for good reason, well, what do you mean business interests? They're not for profit organizations. How could they have a business interest if they are not for profit? What do how do you what do you say to
Every
that?
every nonprofit organization makes money to pay their people that work for them. They can't do it for free. They got to eat.
Yeah,
That they're not supposed to be making exorbitant monies. How could we know? How could we have known about I Corte that fought De La Hoya? How could we have known about Joe Calzaghe from Ireland or from Wales if we had not had those organs? How could we have known of the kids from the Philippines or the kids from Nigeria if they had not been those organizations that were present in those areas? So all those people have to get paid. So yeah, it's a nonprofit. Nonprofit in which way? Nonprofit that the company makes no money, but the people underneath have to get paid. So I think the sanction fees take care of a lot of those things. Now that the WBC, I just heard, this is something new to me. I just heard they had some kind of program in Nevada helping fighters uh, with their medical needs and their housing and stuff like that. I haven't dug into that, but if that's the case, great for them. I'm glad they're doing something with that money. But I don't think it's any of our concern if unless it's a public traded company, unless it's a public traded company where we can buy stock in that, and
yeah.
then
Let
we
me
have
see
a
those
reasonable
books.
pitch.
Yeah,
Yeah, let me see the books, right? But other than that, they have no right to ask us, like just like they have no right to ask Terrence, like I said, or we don't have no right to ask them. Yeah, we can criticize all we want, but we want to see champions fighting champions, and that's what we're going to pay for. We're not going to pay a pay per view where there's a bunch of 10 round fights underneath one title fight.
absolutely. And I think also the fair, like you pointed out a lot of things I didn't even think about, like the regional aspect of them discovering fighters and us then having the opportunity to see those fighters, and those fighters can come from their parts of the world that are relatively isolated to to the states where we can see them fight against our local favorites or someone from England or wherever. It makes it into a world sport. But also, I think people, when they hear nonprofit, perhaps there is a misunderstanding. The people that work for a nonprofit get paid. They have a salary. It is a job that they can make money, and if there's more revenue coming in, they can also make more money.
Make more money, of
Yeah,
course, yes. Now, they just had a convention in Thailand, in Bangkok, I think. WBC convention, I think, was there. And everybody that's anybody from all over the world, representatives, went to this convention. Thousands of people. I've gone to several conventions of WBC down in Mexico. And they go there to petition or to bring the findings of who it is that in their regions, in their areas, are available for some kind of belt or some kind of recognition, and this is how they make sure that we get worldwide cooperation from from countries and from fighters and from or opportunities also for a particular belt or for a particular organization. This time it was WBC. I believe it was in Puerto Rico that they had the WBO convention not too long ago. So they all come together, thousands of representatives from all over the world. Those people are getting paid. Those people are not doing it for free. So sanction fees pay for those things.
absolutely. We mentioned obviously the great school of boxing in Kazakhstan, which, by the way, it seems like it's only growing and growing. You've seen Triple G seems like he was sort of a tip of the iceberg, and the reason why is, of course, the Hall of Fame inductees were just announced. One very special person to you in your career is Triple G. How happy were you to see him get that nod.
Very excited for him and for his family and for his country because he sacrificed a lot. He sacrificed with me at least 9.5 years. And the first couple of years, he was with me probably 10 months out of the year. So he was away from his family, away from his children. But he knew he had a vision for himself and he knew what he had to do. And I'm so happy for him being inducted because it just proves that if you put in the work and you're dedicated and disciplined, yes, you make sacrifices, but people will recognize you.
Absolutely. And I think I asked you this off camera. So now we're on camera. Are you gonna be in Canastota when he gets inducted?
I sure hope I can. I hope that I'm not I have six fighters again in the gym, so I'm real busy, and their careers are just as important as his was when he was with me. So I'm not gonna take away from anybody else to be able to attend something that is very important to me. But also these kids are very important to me also right now.
The life of a trainer is really like the respect I have for all of you is just outrageous because what you just said is exactly what other very good dedicated trainers have said. I was talking to Manny Robles and he was telling me how he had missed Thanksgiving with his family because he had a fighter who was fighting that Saturday and he's like, I'm not going to come back and leave. I got to stay with my fighter. So he had to miss all of Thanksgiving. And it
Yeah.
seems like that's just the way of life for all of you. You all miss so much.
Yeah, well, remember the fighters have one career. They have one career to worry about. We have six, five, six, seven, eight, 10 careers to worry about, and they're all expecting 100% from us. So yeah, we miss a lot, a lot of the important opportunities for to be with our families and to celebrate things that most people do. But we chose it. We love it and we chose it.
Well, okay, so obviously he's inducted. Russ Amber, good friend of mine as well, got inducted.
Just talked to him this morning or
Oh,
last
really?
night. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so he's inducted, well deserved. Great guy, huge advocate for boxing. Antonio Tarver, I think well deserved. One person thinks they, had a remark to make about this class, and we don't have to talk about this person a lot, but Ryan Garcia essentially said that's a really weak lineup that they have there. And it's not the first time he's made a remark like this because before he made a remark about Triple G, and he had said, "Yeah, I don't really see how he's a Hall of Famer." So really, honestly, I'll say it like this: on a special day, or what's going to be a very special day for a lot of people who worked extremely hard in this sport of boxing and made a lot of sacrifices. Pretty not cool thing to say. I would say very disrespectful thing to say. Didn't need to be said, and I don't agree with it. I think all of those guys have had great careers. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I think you have to consider the source. I think you have to consider a guy that's not ever going to be anything. He'll get destroyed in his next fight. There's 200, I believe there's 200 journalists from all over the world to get the vote on this, if I'm not mistaken. And these are people that have been around the game for a long, long time. Have seen a lot of fights, seen a lot of fighters, seen a lot of careers. It's not like one guy chose these inductees. It was 200 people that voted to put him in the Hall of Fame. So I think I have to consider that a lot more than I would consider some um, young guy that really hasn't done anything in the sport. His opinion really doesn't matter to me. It's the 200 knowledgeable people that have voted to put these guys in. They're well deserved. They had great careers, and I think that the people that chose the right ones this time.
You thought a long time, and then you said this young guy. I think there were 7 or 8 other things. Then you go, this young guy, but that's fair because he is still a guy figuring it out. And I think sometimes it's cool to say the first thing that comes to mind. It's a hot take, but I agree with you. I think these guys. It's not a fluke that these guys got in there. These were long, really well distinguished careers, and yeah, I think that's all that needs to be said about it. I think there's just way too much that went into these guys being chosen that they did themselves.
Correct.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt, they deserve to be in. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Um, Gosh, I think we kind of hit all the topics. Oh, Here's a fight. I took this totally wasn't even on my list. There's another fight coming up this month between just a phenomenal superstar of a boxer by the name of Jake Paul and and a guy who at one time I'm going to give all the credit to was a gold medalist, an Olympic gold medalist. At one point, to me, really brought a lot of attention to boxing. Right when it was a good time for him to bring attention by becoming the heavyweight champion of the world, and really was extremely promising and is still very, very talented and powerful. Anthony Joshua, right? I don't even know where to begin. I think what I want to say, I think that I want to give respect for Jake Paul because this isn't a smaller fighter that he's fighting, and it's certainly not a weak or shot fighter or a non-boxer that he's fighting. It's a guy who still has, I believe, a lot of juice, a lot of power, and is a heavyweight. So what? That's my thoughts. I respect it actually. I have to give respect where it's due. That's my take. What do you think of this fight?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to correct you. He's not a great boxer. Um, he is a guy that's got a great gig. Okay, listen, he's convinced a lot of people, and he's doing very well in his career. I've been an advocate for him fighting somebody. He has never fought anybody really that was rated, that was considered a great boxer, as you just said. The one thing I got to give him credit for is that he does have a great gig. He's making money. He's captivated a large audience, which is great. I think you can't fault the guy for that. And from what I understand, he's helping a lot of young fighters. He's promoting a lot of young fighters and paying them handsomely and doing a lot of things for fighters on his card. I think that that's a great thing. We need more people like that. The fact that he's fighting Anthony Joshua, I think, is what I've been asking for. I think Anthony will be too much for him, but more credit to Jake for taking on that challenge. Um, I probably will not see the fight. Not something that interests me. But like I said, power to Jake for captivating a large part of our audience to see a WWE spectacle.
But you want to know? I'll say this though: WWE. That's how you sell tickets. How did Mike Tyson sell
Absolutely, no, no,
tickets?
no. Listen,
Like
oh, absolutely. He's got a great business plan.
yes,
And that he's following that business plan. You got to follow who's successful, and if that's what he's doing a great job of promoting himself. Of But the other part, like I said, more important for me is the fact that he is helping other fighters like Amanda Serrano for one. Okay, he's helping a lot of fighters underneath him, and I think that that's something that few, if maybe not any fighters have ever done in the past. So more power to him. I hope he doesn't get hurt. I hope that the fight is a success in whichever way it goes, and he does it again because I think it's good for him and it's good for the people that he's helping.
what it? I mean, can I just gotta say, is there? I don't see Anthony Joshua on his best day, or even just a good day, an average day. I don't see a fight going more than 3 rounds with him and a smaller guy who is not Olympic pedigree or top high level heavyweight pedigree. Is there any way this fight goes more than 3 rounds?
I think it goes 5 or 6 rounds. I think that Anthony, to make it a show, I think that Anthony will not play with him, but just box him. Just fight with him and listen. Tommy Fury beat Jake Paul, and but I think Anthony will be the better fighter. Has he got anything left? I think he still does. I think he's still a young man. What is he, 37, 38 years old, something like that? He's still a young man because he's not doesn't have a lot of miles on him, and he's taking shots from the biggest guys. What hurt him was the hand speed with Andy Ruiz, and maybe the hand speed with Jake Paul will give him a little issues. Who knows? But I still see as Anthony just being a little too much experience and pedigree to have a guy that he may be sparring a lot with a lot of big guys, but it's the fights really that make a difference.
Absolutely. I will say that was hyperbole when I said this great fighter. Although I do want to give credit. I respect. It takes a lot of guts to get in there with a
Oh,
legitimate heavyweight, and
absolutely.
I can't. I've had a lot of people come up to me and they go, what do you think about this Jake Paul? What a joke!" And I've always said, "But he's doing the work. He's not doing the work. He's putting in the work." Now, is he? Would I compare him to the fighters that I like to see? The top notch guys? No, but
No.
you can't take away the work that this guy's put in. Boxing's hard. You know as well as anybody. So for him to put in all that work and then take this risk, I don't think he took a risk up to this point. This one's 100% a risk.
Yeah, absolutely risk. Yeah, you know what? And you're right. He's made the effort to make himself better. Can he make himself better in a short period of time? Where Anthony Joshua's in boxing since he was 10 years old or 11 years old. All these great fighters, Crawford probably since he was 9 or 10 years old. All these great fighters have all these miles and years of practicing their craft. Jake has done well for the period of time that he's done it so far. If he does well in this fight, gosh, take my hat off to him. But more important for me is the fact that what he's doing with the people underneath him that he's helping.
Anything you want to say before we cut out, Coach?
We have some fights coming up in February. I hope for my two kids, Mo and Sultan. So hopefully everything goes well. We're in training camp now, so we'll see how that goes in February.
The last fight, Muhammad, Alakel, watching it live, I thought he had first off, I thought he had a very good fight, very good aggressive style, cutting off the ring, um, angling. I thought he had great distance. And by the fifth round, you really got on him, and you said, "Hey, you're putting these people to sleep. These people all came to see you. Let's give them a show. Let's finish this show." It was really bold. I thought he definitely picked it up from there, but wasn't able to finish it. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, if you listen to me in between rounds and from the beginning of the rounds, the first, second, and third, I was telling him, "You're fighting a great fight. You're winning. You're doing great." But we need to make sure that we take it to the next level. If you're doing that great, why can't we do a little bit more? I'm always going to be asking for more. I'm never going to be satisfied with my fighters. Never. Because the moment I get satisfied, they get complacent. So I wasn't looking for him to go out and go toe to toe with the guy. I was going out. I wanted him to. What I was saying to him is he's waiting. He's hitting him with 3 or 4 shots, and he's not hurting him, but he's got him in a position where he could finish what he started. Not to go crazy, but you throw a combination and then you step a little bit aside, do it again. And instead of waiting, and what I meant with putting people to sleep was he does something real well, real good, and then he stops. They're looking at each other like, what, 20, 10, 15 seconds. So we're wasting a minute of every fight, of every round, I'm sorry, by just sitting around waiting. I wasn't looking for the knockout. What I was looking for is for decisiveness. For him to just to press the issue. If he doesn't knock him out, if the guy's tough, the guy's tough. Listen, then not everybody's gonna be knocked out, but you cannot sit there and try to see what the other guy's going to do. My guys, I've always, it's been very important in my gym to always make sure that we do what we want to do. I don't care what the other guy does. I want presence. I want you to do what we want to do. That they have a great right hand, that they have a left hook, that doesn't matter to me. We're going to do what we do, and we're going to do it to the best that we can do it. If we can't beat you with the best that we have, then we can't beat you. So when you're hitting them at will, because I think if you count the punches that he hit him with and the punches he got hit with big difference. So when you're landing the punches that you're landing and you're not finishing what you start, you pull back and you allow him to get back into not into the fight because really he wasn't hitting Mo, but you allow him to just think again. Then you're not doing your job as far as I'm concerned. That's not what we're training for.
And I think when he was winning that fight enough, and when he'd get him in trouble, he was getting them in enough trouble. If he would have continued, like you said, you don't necessarily have to throw 20 punches in a row, but if you keep him in that position against the ropes and you keep letting your hands go and connecting, and he's not returning fire, you're probably going to stop that fight too.
The referee's going to stop it. Right. The referee's going to stop it. I'm not looking for one big knockout punch. I'm looking for action so that the referee can then make an assessment of where this fight goes. The guy was tough. He took a lot of shots. When he dropped him in the sixth, is right after I got on him for not finishing. He dropped him in the sixth. He could have done that in the third. It doesn't have to be a Mike Tyson or a George Foreman one punch knockout, Julian Jackson one punch knockout. It can be a succession of things that are going to be needed. This kind of work is going to be needed in the future. We have to know how to do that against these guys. We're going to have to learn how to do it against these guys so that we can do it against the better guys. We can't just sit there and wait. So anyway, that's really why I was getting on him. But like I said, if you listen to me, even from the second round, I think I was saying you're doing great. You're doing great. You're boxing great. You're landing in combinations. Distance is good. Just I want a little more. I'm always going to expect a lot more from Mo, especially because I know he's got more.
Absolutely. And you can tell too. It's sort of like if a lion catches a prey, they get him on the ground, they put their teeth, it's like, sink that bite. You're right there. You've done
Finish
all
it.
the work to get him
Finish it.
right there. You
Finish it.
gotta
Yes.
go
And
for
he
the
had a
kill.
great training camp. He had a great training, had great sparring, had everything. So now make this be the fun part of the
Yeah.
job. You did the hard part. Make this be the fun part. Make it. Don't just sit there and wait. Finish it. That's what I was trying to tell him.
I totally agree. No, and you could. The thing was, I really thought the level of improvement from previous fights to this fight, you could really see he sort of came up. Not only does he look way better, but he also stepped up to the level of the opposition and the stage, and really came out. I thought he fought. Great's a big word, but I think he showed a lot of signs of just controlling the ring, knowing how to cut it. He was a predator in every sense of the word, except for the part
Yes.
of killing. You know, where it's
Yeah.
like, okay, this is it.
Yeah, no, yeah, I thought he fought great, and hopefully the next fight will be better and better and better because he's a very smart kid. That's the one plus for Mo, and I guess that's why I was so hard on him because he's so smart in the gym. He is so calculating in the gym. He's so perceptive on what things are happening in front of him. As you see, the kid was missing by a mile some of his shots because Mo was just pulling just away just enough. So if you have all those things, let's have the other thing
I agree.
that that killer instinct that you're talking about.
I agree, and I think it's right. It's right there. I don't know. I mean, listen. That's why you're there. You know, I don't know what it takes to get a guy to that point where he's going to start finishing. But once he gets that and he has that confidence to sit in there and really be an attacker and finish, I think, like you said, he's going to put on a show. I mean, he's going to be fun to watch. It really
Yeah,
is.
absolutely. That's what I'm looking for him to have fun, but for the folks to have fun too, watching him, watching, how can I put it? Watching a guy with expertise do his job, a calculating job, but very surgical job of finishing an opponent. Again, not by one punch, but just hitting him with some punches, some good punches that the referee has to step in.
Absolutely. Coach, thank you so much. Missed Rudy this time, but
Yeah,
he missed a good one. We'll get him on next time.
yes,
But
he
I,
did.
I appreciate you making this one with me. Thank you, Coach.
I appreciate you having me. Have a great day.
You too.